Monday, 1:57 p.m. A blue sticky note sat on my kitchen table. Recorder, Mon, 2 p.m. Next to it, a deed form with my name already typed in. My niece's fiancé called it just paperwork. I looked at that note, then at the gray USPS letter I'd found 2 days earlier, the one that said my mail had been forwarded to a P.O. box I never opened. That was the moment I realized someone under my own roof had started moving me off my own map. I'm Elaine Porter, 67, retired cafeteria manager from Dayton, Ohio. I know every creak of my porch, every chip of paint on my fridge, and yet somehow, in my very own house, a laminated sheet appeared one morning, caped right there under my Ohio State magnet, listing quiet hours, kitchen sign-up sheet, and utilities paid by retired resident. My niece called it organization. Her fiancé called it a system. I called it what it was, a takeover. Before the clock hit 2, I picked up that letter, my ID, and the one thing they didn't plan for. A neighbor who still believes in paperwork that protects people, not steals them. Because when family says, it's just paperwork, they never expect mother to bring her own. And that Monday afternoon, I did. Before I ever saw the gray USPS letter or the neat blue sticky note with recorder, Mon, 2 p.m. scribbled on it, I saw a laminated sheet on my refrigerator that didn't belong there. That was the first time I felt like a guest in my own little ranch house on Birch Hollow Lane. I'm Elaine Porter, 67, retired cafeteria manager from Dayton, Ohio. I know the sound the back door makes in humid weather and which step on the porch creaks in winter. I know the smell of my house when I simmer chicken soup and the way the maple in the backyard throws shade over the patio in July. I have a regular booth at the Maple Street Diner and a pew on the left side of New Hope Baptist, third from the back. My life was tidy, predictable, mine. Last fall, my niece Brianna, Bree, called me with a wet hiccups in her voice. Auntie, I wouldn't call if it wasn't an emergency. Tyler's startup lost its funding, the lease is up, and the landlord says we have to be out by Friday. It's just for 3 months, please. Tyler was a fiancé, all sleeves and slogans, a man who could explain a brand pivot but not a budget. Bree had been mine since my sister passed. I mean, not legally. She had a father and cousins, but in the way that you take someone into your heart and write their birthdays in pen. I said, yes. I said, of course. Families help. They arrived with a couch that didn't fit through the door and 6 ring lights in a crate. Tyler talked about content verticals and synergy. Bree folded her laundry on my bed and asked where the nearest Trader Joe's was. 3 months, I told myself, when the first empty LaCroix can rolled under my coffee table. Winter will pass. 3 months bled into 7. On a Tuesday in February, I came in from the yard where I had been cutting back the dead hydrangeas. My kitchen smelled like garlic powder and ambition. On my refrigerator, under my scarlet Ohio State magnet, a laminated sheet hung crooked. House operating agreement. Quiet hours, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. to respect content creation. Kitchen access by sign-up sheet. Laundry slots, primary residence first, guests second. Support contribution. Retired resident to cover utilities for stability. Beneath that, a tidy line said, all packages consolidated to Tyler's P.O. box for security reasons. Forwarding in progress. My name appeared on the bottom, as if I'd agreed. Bree, I called, trying to keep something soft in my voice. She came around the corner with a butter knife and a smile. Auntie, look how organized this makes everything. Tyler thinks in systems. We're running the house like an Airbnb. It's going to be so smooth now. Did I miss a meeting? I touched the laminated sheet and felt the edge bite my finger. Why doth it say my mail is being forwarded? Bree glanced toward the hallway where Tyler's ring lights stood like chrome daisies. Packages get stolen all the time. Tyler handles logistics. He says he'll make sure nothing falls through the cracks. Tyler appeared with a tumbler and his favorite hoodie with the word disrupt on it. Elaine, he said, trying my first name like he was testing a mic. You like your morning shows, right? Sit back and enjoy. We'll handle the grown-up stuff. I've been handling grown-up stuff longer than you've been alive, I said, and then I smiled, so it didn't land like a slap. 2 days later, I found the gray letter from the United States Postal Service in my mailbox. Change of address confirmation. It had my name, my address, and a P.O. box I had never opened. I stood at the curb with my hand on the cool metal and read it twice. A cardinal took a hop in my neighbor's yard without a care in the world, while my heart thudded like I'd run a block. I carried the letter in like you carry something that might explode. In the kitchen, Bree was fanning 2 slices of bread to cool the toast down. What's this? I held the letter out. My voice sounded steady, like when I used to tell 3rd graders that served pizza day didn't mean they didn't have to try a carrot. Oh, that, she said, cheerful as a morning show host. We did it online. It's temporary. It's so packages don't get left on the porch. Tyler streamlined it. You cannot change my address without me. The words came out slower than I intended. Tyler didn't look up from his phone. Elaine, we're just cutting down on friction. This is how startups scale. Systems. You know those little things that stress you, mail, bills, forms. We'll take it. What you're taking, I said, and felt my hand shake, is my life. He laughed. That's dramatic. That night, I found a folder on the hall table with a blue sticky note that said, Recorder, Mun, 2 p.m., bring Aunt E's ID, notary at bank. Inside, someone had printed a quick claim deed template, big blank lines waiting for my signature, and a witness. The paper smelled like my printer ink, and a plan that had not asked me to participate. I took the paper across the street to Dolores Green. Dolores is 71, with a face like a bouquet of questions, and the kind of posture that says she never once cut class. She's a retired librarian who runs the card-making class at Curves and Cards and keeps a drawer full of peppermint caddies for neighborhood kids. She read the sticky note, the deed template, and the USPS letter in silence. Then she looked at me over the rims of her bifoptics. Elaine, she said, in the voice that goes before truth, this is not helping with logistics. This is financial abuse. I keep telling myself they don't mean it that way, that they're just young, and young doesn't mean entitled to your signature, she said. We have resources. My niece works at the Office on Aging. We are not Googling our way through this. By 10 the next morning, we were in a beige office on the 2nd floor of a county building with a vending machine that ate $1 of my quarters. The sign on the door said Montgomery County Office on Aging, legal aid. The attorney who came out to us had careful hair and a tie that didn't mind coupons. His name was Andrew Knox. He had the look of someone who had heard many stories and was not bored by any of them. He let me talk. He let me tell the part about Tyler's ring lights, the part about Brianna's good heart and my sister's funeral, the part about the laminated sheet, the gray letter, the sticky note, and the way my name looked on a line I had not intended to sign. Andrew nodded occasionally, and then asked one question that changed the shape of the room. How is your home titled? In a revocable living trust, I said. My husband and I set it up after a good pastor told us to, and I'm the trustee since Jack passed in 2016. We did the paperwork with a man named Harold who kept a candy bowl and wore a bolo tie. That helps, Andrew said, and I saw his shoulders lighten, like he'd set down a bag. First, don't sign anything. Second, we're going to send a termination of license to occupy, 30 days to vacate unless they enter into a written month-to-month rental agreement. We'll specify market rate rent, shared utilities, mail stays with you, no recording you or your private areas, no interfering with your finances, and no changes to your address. We'll also file a withdrawal of the change of address with USPS and draft a cease and desist telling them not to attempt any further paperwork or notary appointments in your name without you present. What if they say tenant rights? I asked. I could already hear Tyler rehearsing the phrase in his mirror. They have no written lease, have paid no rent, and you're the trustee, Andrew said. They are licensees, guests, until they agree in writing to terms. If they refuse and don't vacate, we escalate. But most people rethink their strategies when a letterhead is involved. From legal aid, Dolores drove me to my bank. The branch smells like lollipops and Lysol, and the manager, Martha Yoon, coached my cafeteria crew for years in budgeting classes with a flip chart and patience. "Elaine, I'm so glad you're here," Martha said when she saw me. She tapped the screen and pursed her lips. "We received an online request to add a signer to your checking account, Brianna Riley. It triggered a manual review because of the trust account flag." "I did not authorize that," I said, and felt my ears get hot. "I didn't even know you could request that online." "You can't. That's why the system flagged it. We denied it. But let's go farther. We'll set a password on all changes. Face-to-face only, password required. No new cards without you present. I'll add text alerts to every transaction over a threshold. And while you're here, let's get you a new debit card and set a PIN only you know." She paused, then softened her voice. "Do you want to close any authorized user credit cards?" It embarrassed me how many times I'd let Bree use my card for emergencies. "Yes," I said. "Cancel all of them." Martha's smile reached her eyes. "Good. You're not alone in this." I left with a folder full of paper that made me feel taller. Andrew's letter sat inside, crisp as a promise. The termination of license to occupy, the month-to-month agreement, the cease and desist, the USPS withdrawal form already filled out, ready to hand to my mail carrier with a thank you and a chocolate bar for good measure. When I walked in my front door, Tyler had positioned a ring light by the couch and arranged coasters like props. "Family meeting," he said without looking at me, just as Brianna came out of the hall with printed forms. "Auntie," she said, with the smile that used to make me buy Girl Scout cookies from the troop next to the library exit. "We found these online. It's a durable power of attorney and medical proxy. It just makes things easier if anything happens. We'll take care of you. We'll handle decisions." I set Andrew's letters on the coffee table as if setting down a heavy pot. "I am not handing you power of attorney. I am not changing my address, and you are not going to the county recorder on Monday at 2 p.m. with my citizenship and a notary." They went very still, the kind of still people do when a dog they thought was a golden retriever shows a flash of wolf. Tyler's eyes flicked to the blue sticky note I'd pulled from the folder and laid beside his forms. Bree's smile folded in on itself. "What is that?" he said. "From my attorney," I said, and Tyler's mouth twisted like I'd started a personal attack. "Option A, you sign a month-to-month rental agreement, $950 due on the 1st, utility split down the middle, no forwarding my mail, no filming me or my private spaces, shared kitchen and laundry by schedule we all actually agree on, and no access to my accounts. Option B, 30 days to move out." Tyler barked a laugh. "You can't kick us out. We've lived here 7 months. That's tenant rights. You'll be the one in court." "You are not tenants," I said, and I kept my voice even though it wanted to climb. "You're guests who printed a deed to my house and changed my mail without asking." Bree's voice found a soft, pleading shape. Auntie, it was just to keep life simple. You forget things sometimes. I forget where I left my glasses. I don't forget my name on a deed. Tyler leaned forward with a finger on the paper like he might press his will down through the grain. If you loved Bree like your own daughter, you'd make sure she's secure. I do love Bree like my own, I said, and my voice did not tremble, not even a little. That's why I'm going to model what security looks like. It looks like boundaries. I set them, you respect them. Nobody gets to bully me into signing my life. They didn't sign the rental agreement that night. Tyler slammed their bedroom door so hard, the picture of Jack and me on the hallway wall tilted. Bree cried, quiet and snotty, the way you cry when you feel both guilty and mad. I made tea, because that is what I have always done when people cry in my home. I made it out of habit and love, not out of surrender. The next weeks were a mason jar full of storm. Week 1 was sulking and empty cereal boxes left on the counter. Week 2 was guilt. Do you want us homeless, Auntie? How do you think that would look at church? How would you sleep? I said, if you need first and last month's rent somewhere else, I will help. But you will not do it by pretending I am a problem to be managed like a spreadsheet. Week 3 was rage. Tyler shouted from the hallway that I watched too much cable news and that no judge would side with some elderly woman with her head stuck in the past. I forwarded the voicemail to Andrew. He replied the next morning, save everything, document everything, breathe. Halfway through week 2, the county recorder's office called. The clerk was a woman named Tennille who spoke like she'd been on the phone since she could hold one. Miss Porter, I thought you'd want to know we had a call from someone asking what IDs are needed to record a quitclaim deed for your trust property. We flagged it. We do not record anything without the trustee in person. Thank you, I said, and I felt like I could cry for a stranger who had stood guard over a line of ink. I drove into town with Dolores the next morning and showed Tennille my trust papers. She made a note that any attempt to file anything on the Porter Trust without the trustee present should be declined and the trustee contacted. She stamped a copy and handed it to me. I put that letter in my pantry inside the door where I keep the measuring cups so I could see it every time I baked cornbread. Some nights, to steady myself, I went to curves and cards and sat at the work table while Dolores taught embossing. She showed me how to rub a gold leaf onto cardstock with a cotton pad until it flashed like a coin. We cut cardstock, we fed envelopes through the bone folder, we talked about the way grief sneaks into the grocery store and shows up in produce bins. Every time I left, I felt more like a person who could set a boundary without breaking herself in half. At home, the ring lights came out less. Tyler recorded one afternoon while I made meatloaf and talked to my sister's picture on the sideboard. I said to her smiling face, "You would have told me to do this sooner. You would have said, 'Elaine, nobody gets to promote themselves to manager of your life.'" On day 28, Tyler slid a stapled packet across the coffee table at me like a bill at a bad restaurant. "If you insist on rent, subtract the improvements we've made," he said. "I produced a viral series in your kitchen that raised the city's profile." "I am not subsidizing your hobby," I said. "Rent or vacate." On day 30, at 4 in the afternoon, a U-Haul idled at the curb. Bree came in with a grocery sack and set a bag of the good coffee beside my canister, the one with the blue flowers on it. Her eyes were puffy. She held herself like she had a book on her head and was trying to impress a strict grandmother. "I bought this for you," she whispered. "I'll text you our new address. Thanksgiving?" "Text me your work schedule too," I said. "If you want a home-cooked meal, ask. If you need help, ask. Don't fill out a form. Don't plan a process. Ask me like a person." She nodded, tears running straight down, and hugged me with all the memories of scraped knees and school plays and the way she used to fall asleep on my couch with a blankie when my sister worked night shifts. Tyler walked out without shaking my hand. He brushed the door frame like he owned it. He didn't look back when the truck door slammed. The house sunk on its haunches, the way a dog settles when it knows things are safe. The quiet was not a lonely quiet. It was the quiet of the inside of a shell, the quiet of listening to the kettle and then hearing it sigh. The first Saturday alone, I ate pancakes at the Maple Street Diner. I sat in a cracked red booth under a photograph of a baseball team from 1972 and ordered coffee in the special. The waitress called me Hun and topped me off without asking. I went by the farmer's market and bought a bunch of carrots with their tops still on, and I remembered it was nice to cook for one person you liked. On Monday, I rolled a fresh coat of paint over the faint circle the ring light left on my wall. The paint smelled like a new promise. Dolores came by with lemon bars, and we ate them in the kitchen out of wax paper, standing like teenagers.
2 weeks later, a white envelope came from the county recorder's office. Inside was a formal letter confirming the note in my file. Any attempt to record a transfer on the Porter Trust without the trustee present, decline. I taped that letter in the pantry again, next to my cornbread recipe, and I smiled every time I opened the door because it felt like an amulet. By May, the maple in the backyard was leafed out, and the shade fell into perfect squares on my patio. One afternoon, Bree texted me, "We're at a studio in Huber Heights. Can we talk?" She came alone, without Tyler, and sat at my kitchen table, where so many decisions have been made. I set 2 mugs down and a plate of snickerdoodles. I didn't ask a single question before she started. "I'm sorry," she said, looking at her hands. "Therapy is hard. It's like when you pull a weed and realize the roots run under the whole yard. Tyler said forms would help. He said the POA and the deed were just paperwork, just security. He said you'd be grateful later. And she swallowed. I liked being in charge of something. After Mom died, I just wanted to keep a grip on my world. Control felt like love. I didn't see that I was showing you a cage and calling it a hug." "You're not all wrong," I said. "Control can feel like love. Love can feel like control. Jack used to micromanage our vacations. He liked to know where the bathroom was at every stop. We laughed later and called it his MAP disease. He had reasons, but reasons don't give anyone the right to move the line on your life without asking." I folded a napkin into a triangle. There's a ditch on both sides of the road. One is to give everything away in the name of love. The other is to hold everything so tight it can't breathe. We're going to walk up the center. She nodded, big tears making big tracks. "I got a 9 to 5, Auntie," she said. And even though she is 30, in that moment, she looked like she did at 7, with 2 missing front teeth. "Benefits, a desk. I read your rental agreement. It wasn't mean, it was fair. We can be fair." We wrote rules on a page that wasn't laminated. We signed both our names. Visits by invitation, holidays decided in writing, no mail changes, no paperwork in my name without me asking for it first, no finances shared unless I bring it up. We clinked mugs like we had mixed drinks and not coffee. Summer looked like iced tea on the back steps and watercolor classes with Dolores at the community center. I learned my hips still liked music when the senior center offered salsa lessons. My feet moved like they had been waiting all winter to prove something. In July, I took my usual booth at the diner, and the waitress slid my plate in front of me without asking because she knew my order by heart again. I mailed a birthday card to a woman on the deacon board with a gold leaf Dolores had taught me to apply, and I stuck perfect corners of tape on perfect corners of wrapping paper from my neighbor's baby shower. My life felt securely mine, small but chosen. I still saw Bree. Sometimes we met at a bright little shop with succulents in the window and shared a blueberry muffin. Sometimes I took a casserole to her studio apartment in Huber Heights because I am, after all, the kind of woman who takes casseroles. Sometimes she brought me the good coffee, and we sat on the couch and watched a silly baking show. When she asked how I was doing, I told her the truth. When I asked her if she was going to marry Tyler, she told me another truth. I'm learning what I want to carry into the future and what to set down. I did not say good. I said, I'm here. In September, a week before my birthday, a square envelope arrived with a foiled return address from Montgomery County Recorder. It was a courtesy copy of a letter they mailed to me when they updated my file. Any attempt to file changes to the Porter Trust requires the trustee in person. The clerk had paper-clipped a sticky note to it that said, "Smiled when I saw your name. Tell Miss Green we said hi." Dolores laughed when I showed it to her. We took the letter to the pantry and taped it a second time, like a charm.
I keep the quiet now like a friend. I listen for it. And when I hear the old noises, the furnace kick, the bend in the water pipes, the mail slot rattle, I don't flinch. If I catch a flash of a ring light circle in the right angle of sunlight, I get a roller and paint it again. I do not keep laminated agreements on my fringe anymore. I put kid pictures there, and a recipe for Grandma Ruth's macaroni salad, and a volunteer schedule for the church pantry with my name in ink on the fourth Thursday. And on a late Saturday in October, I sat on my back steps under the maple and watched as the sun went down through the square window of leaves. I held a glass of iced tea that dripped on my knee and watered the tomato plant in the cracked terracotta pot. From a house 2 backyards over, I heard a screen door slam and a woman laugh. Somewhere a chihuahua barked like he meant it. I still miss my sister. I still miss Jack. I still wish life came with instructions written in big letters and taped to the fridge. But that night, I knew some instructions by heart. You can love people without handing them your keys, your PIN, or your deed. You can be generous without being a doormat. Being 67 does not make you less of a person. It makes you a person who has done a lot of laundry and made a lot of meatloaf and can spot a bad plan dressed up as help. Family who love you will ask. They will not assume. And when you say no, real love will sit at your table and listen to what that no means. I think about the day Bree stood in my kitchen with a bag of good coffee and tried to make her sorrow small. I think about how she pressed her cheek into my shoulder and said she was sorry without the word but. I think about how proud I felt when she told me about her desk and her boss and her health insurance card. I think about the way Dolores hands out peppermint patties like they're medicine, and how she sat with me when I felt like my life had popped loose from its screws. That is how I measure love now. By the willingness to sit, by the willingness to ask, by the willingness to accept that my no is a boundary and not a betrayal. A week before Thanksgiving, I got a text from Bree. "Can I come by with stuffing bread? I have good news." I set the oven to 350 and took out the big roasting pan, even though it was just the two of us for a trial run. She came in bouncing like a kid on Christmas and held up her left hand. There was no ring, just bare skin and a smile that reached all the way up to her hairline. "I signed my own lease," she said. "No roommates, no ring light stands in the living room." We drove over to her place in the late afternoon, and she showed me the little green couch she'd found on Facebook Marketplace and the way the light came through the cheap blinds, like a promise you don't mind that it's cheap. She had a kitchen the size of a postcard and a list on the fridge that said in her handwriting, "Rent due first, boundaries equal love, call auntie before you print anything." I took a magnet out of my purse with a photo of us from the county fair last summer. Hair blown, cheeks red from the heat, deep-fried Oreos in hand. I stuck it on her fridge. She laughed. "You brought your own magnet?" "I didn't want your fridge to get lonely," I said. On Thanksgiving morning, my house smelled like celery and onions, and the good coffee filled the kitchen like old hymns. Dolores brought sweet potato casserole with pecans that crunch right, not the marshmallow kind. 2 deacons from church brought 2 extra chairs and their loud laughs. Bree came early in a cranberry sweater and helped me whisk gravy without lumps. We ate until our teeth hurt from smiling. After, when the pies were just crumbs on plates and football hummed at a polite volume from the living room, Bree took my hand in that easy way we have and squeezed. "You saved me twice," she said. "When Mom died, and when I thought control was love."
I squeezed back because that's what you do when a person puts their heart in your hand. "You saved yourself," I said. "I gave you a table." Later, when the house was clean again and the leftovers stacked into perfect boxes in my fridge, I washed my hands in warm water and watched the soap suds move like small clouds over my skin. The pantry door stood a little open, and I saw the county recorder letter, the small proof that people in desks will sometimes stand between you and a train. I thought about Andrew and Martha and Tennille like they were part of the choir. I thought about the line between helping and managing. I thought about how quiet the house was and how it wasn't lonely. In bed, I propped up 2 pillows and opened my book. The maple scratched the window like it always does in November. I turned out the lamp and lay in the dark. The refrigerator hummed. A car went by slow on Birch Hollow Lane. In the space between those sounds, I felt the last of the months of fear run out of me like water from a faucet you forgot could close. Some mornings I still think about the laminated sheet and wonder how something as cheap as plastic and ink thought it had the authority to run my life. I tell my coffee maker I'll never let another one of those live on my fridge. It burbles in agreement. I take my mug to the patio and watch the world. It is small, and it is mine. It fits in my hands. And if anyone ever asks me how old is too old to say no, I will say that saying no has no expiration date, and neither does the joy that comes from hearing yourself and believing what you heard. I am not young. I am not finished. I am not mean. I am a woman who learned to hold her paperwork like a shield and her boundaries like a welcome mat that says, "Come in if you knock." I am a woman who knows the cashier at the Maple Street Diner, the usher at church, the clerk at the recorder's office, and the way to legal aid. I am a woman who makes meatloaf better than anybody in Montgomery County and paints over old shadows with roller strokes that smell like second chances. I am a woman who loves her niece enough to say yes when yes is right and no when no is needed, and who can sit on the back steps at dusk and know that being steady is its own kind of praise. If you want to know what saved me, it wasn't a miracle. It was a ladder with a header, a neighbor with a backbone, a banker with a password, a clerk with a note, and a niece with a change of heart. It was the quiet voice you learn by 67 that says, "You can stop this." It was a laminated sheet that thought it named me, and the soft, raspy laugh I made when I peeled it off my fridge, bent it in half, and slid it into the trash. And the next time anybody tells you it's just paperwork, I hope you think of me at my pantry door, tapping the tape on a letter that says you get to be present to sign your own name. I hope you pick up your pen, and instead of signing what they brought you, you write your own list on unlaminated paper. Coffee at sunrise? Paint the scuff out of the hallway. Buy apples. Call Dolores. Hold your line.